Welcome back. We're still tracking the Solai tragedy, and the Institution of Engineers of Kenya have also added their voice on that particular tragedy. And just before we start that particular discussion on dam structural safety, I want us to just take a look at a statement that the Institution of Engineers of Kenya released yesterday after a press briefing on that particular incident. They said that that tragedy was a human error, saying that due process was required for proper construction and operations of dams was ignored. The IEK also goes ahead to say that tragedies often happen with engineers not involved in county governments especially. And they went ahead to say that infrastructure projects are implemented in broad daylight. So then it means that county officials cannot deny knowledge of illegal construction when asked about what has happened in various circumstances. The IK also questions why county governments are sidelining engineers in procurement of infrastructural projects, saying that cheap shortcuts result to expensive losses like what we are experiencing currently with the Solai Dam disaster. I now want to bring in my guests in studio. They are both from the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. On my immediate right is Patrick Mambuki, is a member of the IEK. Thank you for making time for us. And Nathaniel Matalanga is the Honorary Secretary of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in. I will just go straight to the dam. As an engineer, and you work well with structures and safety, what was wrong?
From the pictures,
yes,
we can. It appears there was no spillway, or if it was there, it was very small. What happened is when the flood came, or water from the floods came, it must have filled and spilled over the dam, and you can see from the downstream that there was a lot of erosion before the dam eventually collapsed. The valley you can see.
Yeah.
Now, two things come into mind. The dam was not monitored. There was nobody checking, particularly at that time when it was spilling. There was nobody, because even if people are given 10 minutes, they were aware 10 minutes that the dam has flooded, and they are told to move, they would have moved. But again, one thing that should be done is there should be a study done to establish if a dam fails, that water, which route shall it take? And everybody on that route should be informed that should the dam fail, you run in this direction. Just like in a case of fire.
Is it something that is currently a prerequisite when one wants to build a dam? What are the things that need to be observed when you want to set up a dam?
Okay, currently it's not a prerequisite as such, but a good practice requires that when you are building a dam, before you build, you know where you are building it. If it were to fail, that water would follow which route?
Yeah.
Because any dam can fail. But the problem is, or the people should have information that should this dam fail, then this is where to run to or to run from. And that way you save a lot of people. We had we have a case in America last April or last May. A dam was about to fail, and they had to evacuate a whole town on the information that the emergency spillway had failed. And they were expecting a lot of water to get into the dam. And when they realized that, everybody was told to move. Luckily, it did not fail. They did all they could to protect it, and it did not fail. Yeah, but we should have, for every dam, no matter how small it is, for every dam we should have such preparedness. Yeah.
Well, apart from preparedness rather, I'm very keen on when you want to set up a dam, what is the procedure? What are the do's and don'ts?
When you want to set a dam, okay, you have to have the site, and you have to carry an environmental study, and then which includes the safety of the people within and along that valley, because there must be a valley where the water normally follows. But now you are closing that valley, and holding that water. Therefore, if the dam was to fail, it will follow that valley. Therefore, you must make sure that the dam you are building is safe to ensure that it should not fail. And should it fail, if it were to fail, then what you need to do is, if it were to fail, because we are dealing with the forces of nature, if it is to fail, then you know how it will fail and who are to be affected, so that you keep them updated.
The IEK is very concerned about how engineers are being treated around the country. Talk to us about that.
Thank you very much, Akisa. The Institution of Engineers of Kenya realize, and the current leadership know very well, that when you involve engineers, they ask for due process to be followed. There are some instances where the implementers of the project sideline engineers so that they can use shortcuts, mainly for personal gain. When your question about the design of a dam, first and foremost, one should consult an engineer.
Yeah.
And the list of engineers is kept at the Engineers Board of Kenya. They even have a website. That list is available online. So no one can claim that he doesn't know where he can find an engineer. There are also very many people who call themselves engineers.
Yeah.
So you need to find out when someone tells you, yes, he can do the service which you require, you need to consult the Engineers Board of Kenya and confirm with them that this person who is purporting to be an engineer is actually a qualified person. Unfortunately, some of us don't bother. We go by what we are told. And in the circumstances, you end up with someone who can be called a quack, purporting to advise you on engineering services. And this way, you get engineers, the proper engineers sidelined in the involvement of your project. The public projects, like the government and the counties, it is very clear. And the governors should help the public safety by ensuring that in all their projects, engineers are involved.
Yeah.
You cannot start a construction of a simple thing like a road if you don't have a design. You cannot ask a contractor, I want a 2-kilometer road starting from here and ending at this place, if you don't have a design. And that design and the costing is prepared by an engineer. So if you sideline an engineer in the implementation of your project, then you are on your own with a builder. It's like setting out on a journey to buy a car like a Mercedes, but you are negotiating with someone who in his mind is very clear that he's going to deliver to you a Toyota. And when he does deliver a Toyota, he will tell you, you wanted a car, and I've given you a car.
Yeah.
So when you involve engineers, you know by the specification and by the design what you are exactly going in for, and the engineers ensure that you get what you set out to do.
From that particular statement that the institution sent yesterday, you've described this particular tragedy as not natural. Why?
Well, it could not have been natural because the design of a dam, and we have so many of them that are fine and are working, they are serving the public. So natural means something like an act of God. There is nothing that you could do.
So there was negligence.
There was negligence. My colleague Patrick has explained to you that from the images we are getting from the site, it looks there may not have been a path for water to escape. You know, when you design a dam, you need to provide to limit the amount of water that dam can take, and you do that by providing an escape route, so that when water starts rising up, reaches a level, it gets out of the dam. You don't let water go until it tops over.
Yeah.
And even there is that normal spillway which you provide for the escape of water. But should something happen with it, that it gets blocked by whatever circumstances, you also provide an emergency one. You put it slightly higher than this one, so that before the water reaches the top of the dam and overtops, you are able to let the water go in a controlled way, You know, the water from a dam, assume the dam is 4 meters. It's coming at a pressure of from 4 meters, so it's a very high pressure. So you need to step down that energy of that water before it reaches the river. And normally you do that by like twisting it. You take the water round circles like this, you reduce the velocity so that by the time it eventually gets near the river where you are taking it to, the energy is reduced and it doesn't cause any damage.
So, in terms of safety, given that we are still encountering or experiencing heavy rains in parts of the country, residents in various parts say that they are worried about the dams that are around them. What are some of the precautions we need to be taking now?
One of the things is to confirm that the structures are safe. Two, they should be monitored. And now monitoring is somebody being there physically to check how is it feeling, how is it spilling, is there any danger. And once you do that, they should be safe. Yeah, we have got a very good example. Whenever Masinga Dam spills or is about to spill, information is given out that Masinga Dam is about to spill, and sometimes they take a helicopter and go along Tana River, telling everybody to get out of the floodplain, because when Masinga spills, the Tana River comes up and floods the floodplains. Yeah. Every dam owner should take a responsibility, yes, and be proactive, because he's the one who has caused the dam to be where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the statement, you also mentioned that county governments are not involving engineers at all when it comes to structures, and not just dams, in various infrastructural projects. Is this something you've raised?
We have,
before?
yes, we at the institution have tried on several occasions to cause awareness that it is important for engineers to be involved in implementation of these projects. But you can see, you can do your own count from the counties. The chief officers who are in charge of infrastructure projects, many a time you find he's not an engineer, he's a layman. So we need to work with the governors. The governors need also to come to realization that they need to get this information and appoint competent people. You know, in Kenya, the ministry that is in charge of infrastructure projects, the Ministry of Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development, we don't have a problem with the CS, Macharia. But you know, there are 4 permanent secretaries, sorry, 4 principal secretaries, and none of them is an engineer. It would be beneficial to that ministry if 1 or 2 of the principal secretaries was actually an engineer, because he will help in implementation of policy. The president's Big 4 agenda, all of that is about improvement of infrastructure. And we as a country cannot achieve that when we do those projects with unqualified people. There are huge parastatals in government, the Kenya Power and Lighting. The managing director is not an engineer. At the moment, there is no one on the board of that parastatal who is an engineer. We commend the PS Energy, is Engineer Njoroge. He has actually appointed Engineer Collins Juma to be the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Nuclear Energy Board. But on that board also of Kenya, there is no engineer who could help the Chief Executive Officer. There is even a bill before Parliament that the major parastatals implementing infrastructure, Kura, Kenha, Kera, Kenya Roads Board. The members of Parliament want to change the act to allow someone who is not an engineer to be the executive director. You know that the executive director is the technical advisor to the principal secretary and to the cabinet secretary. So we are saying from IEK that we don't understand why they want to change this act to enable non-engineers to take over leadership of these prime bodies who are supposed to implement infrastructure projects. How will this person, maybe an accountant, be able to give technical advice
Yes.
about technical issues if it doesn't have the training and experience of an engineer.
All right. I want us to take a quick break. I will be back with this conversation even as we wind up to just take a look at going forward then. What do we need to look at as a country to avoid situations like what we saw with the Patel Dam? Let's take a quick